Part 3. Why do we have to say anything? Shihana asked sourly. Hugo glanced at her. It's your fault we got caught. You shouldn't have been following us anyway, Balsa said. Go away. It's Kanbal at night, Shihana said. You want us to freeze? It's summer. You'll live, Balsa snapped. Now, Yuka said. It's wrong to turn people out in the cold, Balsa. If you know them, I'll let them stay. Tanda looked apprehensive. He didn't think that either he or Balsa would get much sleep tonight with those two spies in the house. In the guest room, Hugo was asking himself how the heck he put his nose in such a situation with Shihana. At first, it was only supposed to be a bet between her and him about challenging Balsa. Eventually, he lost at rock, scissors, paper. So, Shihana had won the bet, and that's how they found themselves in Kanbal. Her ally seemed already asleep. He was about to close his eyes, but when he saw the little monkey, Kizaru, jumping out of the bed of her master and jumping out of the bed of his master and running out of the room, for a moment, Hugo thought he could follow him, but then he turned his head on the pillow. Nah, it's not worth my time, he thought. None of my business dealing with an animal in a foreign country. He closed his eyes. In the morning, Hugo received a slap from Shihana as he was still asleep. What the heck has gotten... Wrong voice. What the heck has gotten into you? He exclaimed. Where's Kizaru? She spat. I don't know, damn. She turned her back and got out of the room. Shihana tried to share her eyes with Kizaru, but a powerful and unknown energy was blocking her senses. What's this energy in Kanbal? It's blocking all my Kashal abilities. Must be those dwarfs, I'm sure about it. Shihana ran into Yuka by accident. Fortunately, she was only carrying clothes and blankets. Sorry, Shihana said. That's okay, Yuka replied. I know we're not totally awake in the morning. You seem tense. Is there something wrong? I'm looking for my monkey, Kizaru. Have you seen him? A monkey? Yuka lifted her eyebrow. She remembered having seen a monkey outside with the herder people and passed this information along to her impromptu guest. When Shihana stepped outside, she froze before putting herself to a slap. A monkey riding a goat in front of the herder people. Kizaru definitively knew how to embarrass his master. Shihana turned bright red. Kizaru, get back here right this instant, she scolded. But the monkey only grinned and kept riding. Shihana heard Tanda, Balsa, Hugo, that traitor, and worst of all, Yuka, laughing behind her. Kizaru, she snapped, you stupid monkey, you stop that at once. Allow me, Miss Shihana, said Toto, one of the herders. He gave a piercing whistle, and the goat stopped dead in its tracks, then trotted obediently over to Toto like a dog, waiting for a treat. There you are, said Toto, lifting Kizaru off the goat's back and handing him to Shihana. Good as new. He smiled at the monkey, who seemed unhappy that his joyride had ended. Did you have a fine time, little monkey? Kizaru chittered and grinned. If Shihana weren't imagining it, he actually nodded. Toto smiled back and patted the monkey's head. Shihana frowned. Don't encourage him. Oh, there's no need for you to be angry, Miss Shihana. There's no harm done. Shihana scowled and didn't say anything. Hey, chimed in Hugo, uninvited. Do I get a ride next? You do not, Balsa said sternly. She turned to Yuka. Did Toto the Elder's goats get loose again? Why does that always happen? Well, you know how the animals get in midsummer, she said, looking significantly between Balsa and Tanda in a way that Balsa tried not to interpret as insulting. She would have children when she was damn well ready. And maybe she'd have none at all. She had so few memories of her mother that she didn't really know what it would be like to become one. Tanda would be a great father, though. Maybe they should visit Asura and Chikisa on their way back to New Yoko. Also realized that she was already a mother, in a way. Without her help, Asura, Chikisa, and Chagum would never have gotten the chance to grow up. That didn't mean she wanted a baby of her own, though. She tried to imagine a fierce little girl or a curious little boy with her dark hair and Tanda's bright eyes and found the images strange. She didn't really remember what it was like to be a child, either. Let's get the goats back in their pens, Balsa said. She glared at Hugo. No riding. Hugo grumbled, but he and Shihana both moved to help her. Tanda and Yuka got the goats back to where they belonged. By the time that was settled, it was past dinner time, and Balsa was in a somewhat irritable mood. They'd traveled all this way to see Yuka. It wasn't the kind of homecoming she was expecting. Balsa washed her hands and face at the well in Yuka's yard. The herbs were growing well, especially the purple okul flowers that Balsa's mother had loved so much. The flowers were hardy and would grow in any soil in any season. Rotans used it as a base tonic for Shyam application since the flower increased the effectiveness of the other herbs. Tanda came outside to join her. His eyes lit up when he saw the herb garden. Balsa walked Tanda around Yuka's herb garden, telling him what the plants were before they had to go in for dinner. Aunt Yuka, watching from the window, smiled to herself. They really seemed good together, her niece and this Tanda from New Yogo. She'd never thought Balsa would end up with a man like this, or with anyone, really. Balsa was like Jiguro, always moving from place to place, always looking for something to fight. Jiguro and Yuka had certainly shared each other's company often, but Yuka had never deceived herself that Jiguro might settle down with her for good. Balsa seemed like she would be the same, getting her kicks where she could with people like the two foreign spies who were currently taking up space in Yuka's home. But somehow Balsa had ended up with a man who was much more like Karuna than Jiguro, a gentle-hearted healer. A gentle-hearted healer, someone who would care for Balsa both physically and emotionally. Thinking this, Yuka felt a warmth in her heart. She was very glad that Balsa had found someone so good for her. All at once, she heard a loud sound from the dining room. "No way! I won that!" came an angry female voice. That would be the Roten spy, Shihana. A moment later, the other spy's voice shot back, "Nope, it was me, and you can't prove otherwise." Yuka sighed. She should probably go into the dining room to break up the fight, but she really didn't want to. Shiana and Hugo were exhausting. As Yuka entered the dining room, the scene was about what she expected. The two spies had been playing Susuto, and now the pieces were scattered all over the floor. "Cheater!" screamed Shihana. Balsa went to go see what Shihana was screaming about, and to tell her to keep it down, with force, if necessary. This was a small village in Yonsa clan territory, after all, not the square in Rota City. "What seems to be the problem?" Balsa asked, arms folded. Shihana frowned. "Hugo's trying to cheat." "At what?" "Tarzu," Shihana said, sounding miffed. Balsa looked around Shihana and noticed a cloth game board on the floor, along with figures made of paper. They looked like warriors, craftsmen, artists, and villagers. One near the front wore the armor of a Roten general, all done carefully with paper. The setup reminded Balsa a little bit of Susuto, a Roten strategy game. But this one looked more complicated. "I've never played before, so how can I cheat?" Hugo muttered, fiddling with a Tarzu piece in one hand. Yuka came back outside with 5 cups of Lakal. Balsa and Tanda were being forced to play with that game called Tarzu with the guests. Shihana and Hugo had a weird relationship as friends/enemies, fighting about everything. It could have been the first one to enter the House of Healing, or the one who the baby goat decided to go towards first. The healer watched the game before going back to her patients. They're adults. They're able to be responsible. Well, at least I hope, she thought. She was treating a client when she heard the branches of the yucca tree moving. With a quick glance, Yuka saw both Hugo and Shihana climbing the yucca tree, making once again a competition. "Oh no, not that tree," she sighed inside the house, shrugging her shoulders. "Well, they'll learn." Balsa came up behind Yuka and stood next to her, watching the shenanigans. She chuckled softly. "Which one do you think will break an arm first?" My money's on Shihana. She's a lot more reckless." "That's because she's so competitive. Believe it or not, they're actually both terribly calculated and conniving. Usually Shihana plans and plots out every move precisely, but when her ego gets threatened, well..." Balsa laughed. Sure enough, Shihana tried to dash past Hugo and got too close to him while holding a precarious branch. Hugo took the opportunity, and without any hesitation at all, shoved her out of the tree. But Shihana's cat-like reflexes allowed her to grab hold of Hugo as she fell, and a second later both of them hit the ground with a yell. Balsa and Yuka walked over to the cursing mound of limbs and rage on the ground beneath the tree. "Well," said Yuka, leaning closer, "which of you broke a bone? Hopefully not both. I'd rather not spend the rest of the day treating you." Fortunately, neither Shihana nor Hugo broke any bones while landing. This was largely due to combat training and getting enough calcium in their respective diets. "Why are you still hanging around here anyway?" Balsa asked Hugo and Shihana, shifting her glare from one to the other. She disliked Shihana more, but she didn't like having any unnecessary people with her. She didn't feel obligated to protect them, but she also hated being spied on. "That's not very nice, Balsa," Yuka chided. They are our guests, just like you." What? They are guests, just like you and Tanda." Balsa shrugged. "I suppose." They were sleeping outside. She'd see to it. It was summer. They wouldn't die. Probably. Tanda waved to Balsa from inside the house. I found a new kind of mushroom, and Yuka said it was safe to eat. I'm making stew, Tanda called out from inside Yuka's house. Stew? I love stew! Balsa whirled as a voice... wrong voice, sorry. Stew? I love stew! Balsa whirled as a voice rang out melodiously from the direction of the gate. Who the hell is that? Grumbled Shihana. Hugo merely started cackling to himself, which made Balsa suspect that, 1, he knew who it was, and 2, it wasn't anyone good. As the figure pushed through the doors into the garden of the House of Healing, Balsa felt her spirits drop right through the floor. If there was ever anyone that she never wanted to see again. Why, it's Balsa the Spear Wielder, the newcomer cried. Balsa the hero, Balsa the savior of New Yogo, Balsa the slayer of Talamaya, Balsa the... Why, it's Huguenot, the absolute worst, Balsa groaned, her lip curling in distaste. Rescuer of children, Balsa the swift, Balsa the strong, Balsa the sexy. If you don't shut up, I'm going to become Balsa the butcher, Balsa the killer, Balsa the destroyer of minstrels. Got it? Huguenot, shut up. Hugo elbowed Balsa, still snickering. Your favorite person, huh? Hugo, I swear. There's just one small detail, Huguenot said. I don't care. It's just, I'm being pursued by a pack of bandits right now, so, if you could just let me in and maybe lock the gates, that would be simply marvelous. Yuka's expression showed clearly some irritation. She never thought her house of healing would be a temporary inn for foreign travelers, except for her niece and her husband. If you all continue to come to my house like that, I'm going to make you all pay for the stay here, she finally said in a sigh. Really? Can I? Yes, but I won't lock the gate. Why? Well, let's say Conval has a lot of secret people everywhere. Come in before I change my mind about it. They rushed inside, thanked Yuka for being so accommodating. Casa, meanwhile, was on the Yonsa territory with his little sister, Gina. He wasn't a king's spear, but he was officially part of the king's circle. All the young men of the chiefdom went to live in the capital once they reached the age of 18. Last time Casa saw Balsa, it was for the last giving ceremony 4 or 5 years before. In any case, he was passing by the territory and thought to say a little hello to Aunt Yuka. Gina tilted her head to the side like a little bird, seeing 2 horses near the yucca tree. What's wrong, Gina? Casa asked her. I didn't know there was a party at Yuka's house, she explained. Can we join them? Ooh, a party? Shishim leaned over their shoulders, completely out of nowhere and completely unwelcome. Can I join? No, Gina and Casa said in unison. Shishim glared at them. I'm telling Dad. Gina just rolled her eyes. She and Casa hurried to Yuka's house, while Shishim stood all alone, watching sadly. He only wanted to be friends with them, but he'd been such a bully in his youth that they would never give him the time of day. I guess I'm forever alone, he said sadly to the goat that stood nearby. The goat nearly bawed at him. Hey, you, called Toto, the oldest herder. Don't just stand there like a poor and lonely soul with the goat. Get up and go join the others in Yuka's house. Why? He asked. It's soon Yuka-san's birthday, and they're going to have cake and sweets there. You don't want to miss this opportunity. In fact, nobody wants. He looked at the House of Healing. Toto, impatient, decided to grab him by the arm and lead him in. Hey, guys, did you already serve the cake? The herder questioned. We were about to, Tanda replied. Where's Yuka? She's with Balsa and Shihana. Both of them decided to start a fight, only to have caught Yuka's attention by the time we got the cake out of the oven. Casa helped to free the space on the table as Gina went to search for the 3 women in the room. Balsa decided to put a headband over her aunt's eyes and led her into the kitchen. When Yuka had finally been freed, she jumped as everyone wished her, Happy birthday, sweet Yuka! The healer was so touched that tears began to show into her brown eyes. Kizaru jumped on her, asking for a hug. Jigoro and Karuna, both in their spirit forms, smiled at her and gave a toast to Yuka. Thank you, everyone. It's the best birthday I could ever have in my life. The end.